Hello, I'm Justin Slaten,
I'm Justin Watari.
I'm Nick Atkins.
And I'm Malachi, Emond.
and this is our final PowerPoint presentation of Movement Towards Equality. The origin of Black theater. Black theater began in the early 1800s. These shows were mainly used to reinforce the ideologies of white people about the black community. The minstrel shows / blackface included acts where white people would dress their faces in black paint to depict black people. Black people at the time were not allowed to participate in these shows because they were viewed as lesser than the white people. Shows that interpreted sometimes unflattering views and perspectives of the black community. Eventually, black actors were introduced into these plays, but were still required to paint their face black.
During this time, we saw a lot of racial stereotypes. All black people were viewed as one instead of individuals. We saw this in action in our play Dutchman by Lula. Stereotypes also affected the confidence of black people and hindered their ability to discover their true identity and potential. They were treated as a lesser person than others in society. They were often looked down upon, and their actions were heavily scrutinized. Another thing that black people during the time faced was oppression. They weren't given a voice to be creative and innovative for their time. Thoughts and ideas were overlooked and unvalued. In the play Mine Eyes Have Seen, Chris tries to fight oppression by refusing to join the war. To piggyback off that, black people thought their efforts in war would create a less hostile environment upon return, but that never happened. They also weren't looked at as being able to attain the American dream.
This slide is about the mistreatment of black women. Unfortunately, at this time, black women were viewed as materialistic and were often harshly treated, did not have a voice in the community, often seen as dependent and needed to stay at home. In the play Sally's Rape, we saw the issue of rape and how prolific it was in society at the time. The name Sally was common, and it was used in the play and implied that rape was also common. In the play For Women, we learned that black women sometimes had to resort to prostitution.
Next, we'll talk about the treatment of black men. During this time, there was unfair lynchings just due to the fact of their skin color. They were stuck in extreme poverty without having the opportunities to reach out and have a better life. Due to this, they had less job opportunities just due to the fact that they were black and they were viewed as lesser. They were often used as unpaid servants to wealthy white families. This was used to avoid the term slavery, but the concept was still exactly the same.
Now we're going to talk about the Harlem Renaissance. The Harlem Renaissance was a time where black theater really began to flourish and start gaining ground. Often called the New Negro movement, which was coined from the play The New Negro. This is when black artists such as W.B. Du Bois and Lorraine Hansberry gained a lot of inspiration for their work. W.B. Du Bois also brought forth a term that we learned about in this class called the talented tenth, and he brought this to the public viewpoint through his work. The talented tenth being that in schools, they were thought that they could find the top 10% of the black people and send them to really good schools and get them a really good education so that they could become the new leaders in society and start giving black people a voice. This also gave black people inspiration to create their own identity.
Some important figures that we saw during this time was Woodrow Wilson, and another concept was the Jim Crow laws. Woodrow Wilson was the 28th president of the United States and was seen as a very heavy racist. In 1913, Woodrow Wilson established federal segregation. The Jim Crow laws were basically the federal segregation, and they were established mainly in the southern half of the United States. During these times, blacks and whites were considered separate but equal. Everything was divided amongst the two parties, such as workplaces, schools, bathrooms, even the Major League Baseball scene at the time with the Negro League and the actual Major League Baseball. Laws weren't enforced until the mid-20th century.
And now we have a short clip of a blackface theater performance.
Okay, so in conclusion, black people have been fighting for equality for most of humanity, as we've seen. Theater was one of the platforms black people used to create awareness of the issues they face on a daily basis. Theater also helped break barriers that separated the whites from the blacks at the time.
Black theater encompasses the strength and innovation that lies underneath all of the scrutinization that shows on the surface.
The efforts from notable artists help pave the way for future generations and establish a firm base of culture that could be built upon.
This has been our presentation on the origin of blackface theater and a movement towards equality.